Working together to make a better community. We can create a brighter day.
Welcome to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guest today is Charla Robinson, the president of the Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Charla.
Hello, Steve. Great to see you.
So you've been on the show before, so this is kind of a welcome back. It's been a few years, and a lot has happened since you were on the show on many levels. I mean, the one obvious one, of course, is the pandemic and all the changes that happened for local businesses and our local citizens around that. Well, what are some of the challenges that the members at the chamber are facing, and any stories about how people are overcoming some of those challenges?
Absolutely. So, as we all know, the world changed pretty dramatically in March. First of all, with the government starting to tell certain businesses that they, were not essential businesses and shutting them right down. Restaurants were told that they could no longer have patrons. A lot of business owners were really sort of almost blindsided by this concept of a lockdown at that point. And so that required a pretty quick change of direction for a lot of businesses to try to figure out, how do I continue to offer my services or offer my products to my customers without doing it in person. And so there's been, there's so many amazing stories about businesses that have had to make that transition and have made it well to offer the products that they previously offered. But then there's also a lot of businesses that realized that, what I used to do probably isn't going to be something that I can do right now, So, a good example is the Whole Nine Yards, which is alterations and, that sort of business. Well, clearly people aren't going to be able to drop off their clothing for alterations and repairs if, you have to do that in person in some way to be able to talk about what you need, that sort of thing. And so within a matter of weeks, they realized that there was a need for face masks, right, and that a lot of people were starting to wear face masks even before the government required that. And they switched production. They brought back their workers who had been laid off for a number of weeks, and said, we're going to start making face masks because we realize that there's a demand for that. And that has grown to the point that they've actually had to hire more people and buy more sewing machines. It's really been an amazing story. Similar to Sleeping Giant Brewing Company with their transition from, there was a huge demand for hand sanitizer. And so they basically, sort of shut down the production of beer for a while and switched everything to work with microbiate and made a hand sanitizer locally and got that out to everybody. So, there's so many amazing stories of businesses that have really, taken this challenge and turned it into an opportunity. But there's also so many businesses who are still continuing to struggle. I think over the summer, a lot of businesses sort of started to feel that, okay, things are getting a little more back to normal. The restaurants were able to open again. There was a lot of patios that people could eat outdoors if they didn't feel comfortable eating indoors, all that kind of thing. People were more out and about. And now again, that we're entering into the second wave, that's starting to decline again. People don't feel comfortable, going to a restaurant perhaps. And of course, the government is telling us to only do things with our own households now. Right. So you usually wouldn't go out to a restaurant, just by yourself with your spouse or your kid. You would usually go with a friend or someone from outside of your household. So again, that's another reason why people are saying, well, I'm not going to go to a restaurant, or I'm not going to go, to this type of an activity, because I would usually do that with someone that isn't in my household. So we're certainly seeing some pretty dramatic challenges for many businesses. People aren't traveling, people aren't out and about, people aren't socializing as they should not. But there's definitely an economic impact to that. So it's been a challenging time. And we have been working with the Community Economic Development Corporation, the Northern Policy Institute, the North Superior Workforce Planning Board, to survey businesses pretty much monthly, bi-monthly since April, to find out, are you open? Are you not open? How is this impacting you, et cetera, so that we could get a gauge of the situation. The numbers have gotten a little bit better again, over the summer, businesses saying that really helped, that folks felt more safe, but we're still seeing some pretty significant impacts. I mean, we've got, 29% of sort of service sector businesses that respond to the survey saying they're really not sure if they can survive.
Wow.
That's pretty significant number of restaurants and hotels and service providers that are really, up at night wondering if they can make this go. We have over 45% of those businesses said that they've lost over $100,000 since this started, and a total of 78% have said that they have lost revenue. So that's a pretty significant impact for a business owner, and trying to figure out how to manage that. We know a lot of businesses have had to, reduce their staffing, reduce their hours to try to keep the overhead costs down. And we're starting to see that again, where restaurants are saying, I'm going to have to just move to takeout only. I can't keep the dining room open because there's not enough people coming in. I've got more staff than customers. It's costing me a lot of money, and I want to make sure that we can survive this. And so they're having to make some really tough choices. But so yeah, it's been a really challenging year for small business owners in particular. But again, there's always so many success stories too, of folks who've really put some ingenuity in and reimagine their business, and have done amazing things working together to get through.
Sometimes, Charla, I feel like we're kind of blessed in a way in Thunder Bay that we're kind of isolated from other major centers. And so we've kind of developed a reliance on ourselves here locally to kind of not wait for someone else to solve the problems, but to figure it out for ourselves. And you shared some of those examples along the way. Now, in terms of the role that the chamber can play in supporting local businesses, what kind of supports are you able to offer your members?
So since this pandemic started, we have really transitioned to trying to be a communicator. So there's so much information. There's so many programs. The provincial government's doing this, the federal government's doing that, the municipality is doing that. There's all these different programs for different sectors and different types of business. So we've been, trying to be sort of a centralized interpreter almost as to, what does this program mean? How does this work? Bringing it down from some of these programs, they'll send out a 13-page backgrounder to explain, how this program works. Well, most business owners don't have time to read about one program for 13 pages, never mind there's 5 or 6 programs happening at the same time, right? So we've been trying to be that communicator, to give them that information. So, the wage subsidy, here's how it works. Here's who's eligible. Here's where you go. Here's what this means for you. Now we've got the new rent subsidy that just opened on Monday, and a lot of businesses are saying, oh, well, I wasn't eligible for the one in the summer. So trying to make them understand this is a different program. This is how this program works. And it's not just for folks who are renters of their business space. It's also for folks who run their business in a building they own. And what can you claim as expenses, and what kind of subsidy can you get? So, we're trying to be a conduit to kind of break down the confusion and answer some of those questions. And then if we don't know the answers, we've got connections in Ottawa, in Queen's Park, to say, does this work? Is this eligible? Or in the case of some of the programs, like the wage subsidy originally came out as a 10% wage subsidy. Well,
right.
lovely, but 10% is not going to cut it. And so we advocated very strongly as the chamber network to say, you know, it's got to be significant. Like we need 60, 70%. And it went up to the 75% wage subsidy for over the spring, because the government realized 10% is not enough to encourage employers to keep their staff working, which means that more people were going on to EI. And so then they had to switch the EI program to the emergency response benefit, the CERB program, because the EI program wasn't meeting the need. And there was just, you know, it was just overwhelming the number of people who were getting let go. So, you know, we've also been providing that feedback to government to say, you know, nice try, but try again. This needs to be, you know, more enhanced. This problem here where there's a gap that these folks aren't covered, those things need to be addressed. And the government on all fronts have been very receptive, and you know, they've made a lot of changes to these programs, and you know, to give them full credit, they're learning too, right? Like this is a first time for all of us. And so, you know, they've been very receptive and saying, you know, we didn't think about that. We're gonna look at that, and we're gonna change the program to make it, you know, to make it better. So so that's kind of what the chamber's been doing. You know, certainly we do a lot of advocacy as a normal part of our business. Normally we would usually do a lot of events that would bring people together. Well, that hasn't been allowed to happen. So we've been switching to how do we educate members, not only on the government programs, but also on some of the things that they need to know. So, you know, we've had a lot of sessions, webinars, training sessions around not only how to apply for funding, but things like the safety requirements. What do you need to do to keep your customers safe, to keep your staff safe? You know, all of the different changes that businesses are having to figure out. We've been providing an opportunity for them to learn from experts and to help them through that challenging road.
Well, I am on the contact list, the email list for the chamber, and I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times a week or something, we get a newsletter with full of information, with links that I can go to for more information. I've watched last week one of the videos you did. I think it was around the rent subsidy.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, we've been working really hard because we know that business owners are already, you know, they've got this fire hose shooting at them of trying to figure out, you know, how to keep the doors open, how to keep their staff, you know, how to get their supplies. I mean, there was some major supply chain challenges, you know, in the first number of months as people aren't working. How do you get your supplies restocked, you know? So they've got enough to figure out. They don't need to spend 3 hours trying to read through, you know, pages and pages about this program or that program. They need, you know, they need a 3 or 4 sentences, or they need a 2-minute video to say, here's, you know, here's just the facts, just the high level. You are eligible, you aren't eligible, here's where you go for more details, and then call us if you have questions. And so that's certainly been well received, and we'll continue to do that as long as our members need that support.
You know, speaking of support, Charla, you know, the other component is, oh my God, what am I going to do next? You know, my supplies won't come in. You know, I don't know if I can afford to keep my staff. That mental health piece, is the chamber engaged at all in providing support there for members?
Yeah, we've got a number of businesses in town that have been very generous with their time. So that was, you know, we had a couple of those sessions as well. Like, you know, you've got parents trying to figure out how to do schooling with their kids in the spring at home while they're trying to work. And, you know, there's so much mental anguish and emotional stress. So we've had a couple of sessions around that. Like, how do you manage this? How do you take care of yourself? How do you manage the stress of your staff as well as yourself? Like, what's some tricks and tools? And of course, you know, the chamber offers a health program as well for employers to provide. And, you know, there's employee assistance program through that. So, you know, trying to make them aware of the tools that are available as well to address those mental and emotional strains that we're all feeling right now, for sure.
Well, when I was reading the one of your newsletters a few weeks ago, and I'm not sure about the timing here. I saw that the Thunder Bay Chamber had put forward a resolution to the federal government, I think, or provincial government. I wasn't even sure, but I think it went to your federal, the Canadian Chamber, to re-examine the issue of a basic income, building on our experience here in Thunder Bay with the basic income pilot project. Tell me a little bit about that. Where did that come from? And we don't really normally think about, you know, the chamber or business being proactive in poverty reduction. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, happy to talk about that. So as you know, Hamilton was also one of the communities that had the provincial pilot. And, you know, with the immense loss of jobs, short-term, long-term in the spring, and the introduction of the CERB program, the emergency response benefit, which was pretty much a basic income. You know, the government said, we're going to give, if you're not working, we're going to give everybody this amount of money every month. And if, you know, and as long as you're not working, you have that for 6 months or whatever the time frame was. And not the same as, you know, EI, where you have to report your hours every week and, you know, that you've done this and you've done that and you're checking all the boxes. I mean, it's very onerous. It was more of a, you know, I confirm I'm not working, send me the money. And so, you know, we saw that as basically almost a bit of a pilot for a basic income. And of course, it was very well, there was a lot of take up across Canada on the CERB program. But then we also saw the challenges that the program, you know, presented to employers, because if you're not able to give your staff, you know, regular full-time hours, if usually they would work 30 hours a week in your retail store, of course, when your retail store was closed because it wasn't essential, that was great. The government said, you know, we're gonna take care of your staff, and that was great. But once things started to reopen and businesses were starting to reopen, but maybe realized that still they weren't going to need you to work the full-time hours. You know, can you come in and work 10 hours this week because we need to get things stocked because we might be open, or because we have this product coming in, or etc. Well, the folks, their staff who were receiving the CERB benefit, of course, are saying, well, if I do that, then I'm going to lose my pay from the CERB program. And so we were able to, you know, see how there were some challenges there between the trying to help people to ensure that they had the income they needed to get them through, but then also employers not able to get workforce because they weren't able to offer what the normal job would have been. And so, you know, folks were being forced to say, I can't work for you for 10 hours or 15 hours because I can't afford to work for you for 10 or 15 hours, and because the government program wasn't flexible. So it was a really good example of how a pilot can actually help to identify some of these challenges, can be a way to sort of test things out and make sure that there aren't unintended consequences. And that's where the conversation came up between us and the Hamilton Chamber. They came to us and said, you know, we think a basic income pilot nationally, you know, it's such a topical issue right now with the introduction of CERB. Why don't we put that forward to the Canadian Chamber? We think it's important. We think a basic income is a really important concept to help to address income equality, and to you know, basically provide a pathway for folks that haven't had the opportunities for whatever reason to be able to, you know, move into potentially, you know, better situation, so that they're not held back from being able to be part of society, of the labor market. You know, maybe they're not able to afford to go to university or college because of their situation. A basic income can help, you know, ensure that they don't miss those important skills opportunities, which will then lead them to be able to have a life of, you know, a career that they choose. So yeah, we were thrilled to work with the Hamilton Chamber to put it forward to the Canadian Chamber. And we were successful in having the Canadian Chamber delegation from across Canada, which we met virtually, which was an interesting thing in itself. We were successful in having it adopted as a Canadian Chamber policy. So, now working with, bringing this forward to the federal government and saying, we think a pilot, a national pilot, would be a great way to, evaluate what would be the positives, what would be the challenges, how do we make sure that if you're going to change the way these programs work, that you've done it with some evidence, you've gathered the evidence. And so we're thrilled that the Canadian Chamber has come on board for that, and we'll be continuing those conversations with the federal government as they move forward.
Well, it's really exciting as a kind of social justice advocate to feel like, oh my gosh, we're working hand in hand with the business community. This is so great. And along that line as well, folks know I've got a disability myself, and I'm an advocate for injured and disabled workers. In terms of, and we know that, people with disabilities are really underrepresented in the workforce, and there's a lot of barriers there. What are some of the ways that the Chamber can maybe work together around eliminating some of those barriers for people with disabilities to be really engaged long-term into the workforce?
Yeah, so we've got the Ontario Chamber of Commerce has been really taking a lead on this in Ontario to help employers to ensure that that they're doing everything they can to make their workplaces accessible for those with disabilities. And one of the ways that they're doing that is through what's called the Discoverability Network. And it provides a connection between business and job seekers with a disability. It helps provide tools to businesses to ensure that their workforce, their workplace or their policies are not, putting up a barrier for someone with a disability to be able to work with them. And so it's really an important piece. And I think even now, even more so, because there's opportunities from this COVID challenge. A lot of businesses still have not, even over the summer when things were a little more normal, they're still working from home, and they're realizing that working from home actually works. And so we expect that a lot of businesses where that has worked well will probably continue to have a portion of their staff that works from home, maybe full-time, maybe it's a bit of a hybrid model where you're in the office so many days a week and you're at home so many days a week, and there's a rotation of you wouldn't need as much office space, that sort of thing. But this presents an opportunity for someone with a disability in some of these areas where you can work from home, because your home is already set up to address your challenges. And so if you could work remotely and you didn't have to worry about how am I going to get to work, how am I going to get, up to the office, how am I going to get, a workstation that works for me, all of those challenges, you can have that set up at home. And potentially it will actually open some doors for folks that haven't had those opportunities before, because there was a traditional mindset that you had to come into the office and you have to work 9 to 5 and you have to, do it this way, and that maybe doesn't work. So, there are certainly opportunities, and the work that the Ontario Chamber doing is pretty incredible with the Discoverability Network, and it's something that's available across Ontario for both job seekers and employers to help them to become more more welcoming to disabled individuals in their workplace. So really important work.
Great. In the last couple of minutes, Charla, I've been so excited by all the new local businesses starting up in so many different sectors. And, you just told us about so many of the challenges folks are facing with the pandemic. What can we do to support our local businesses, through this now real kind of rough time in the second wave with the pandemic?
Well, I think it's an obvious choice, but it's not always something that people think about. You need to shop local. If you don't buy local, you're going to say goodbye to local. And so, whether that's from, your weekly grocery shopping, if you can support a Canadian company versus an American company, if you can support those local corner stores or small grocers with, specialty items, get your meat from their meat counter, get their special deli items. If you can be supporting restaurants, I know folks can't be maybe going to restaurants right now, but do that weekly takeout if you can. Buy a gift card for someone. We know that this pandemic will be over at some point. Probably, we're talking vaccines. We're talking, probably within the next year, things might start to ease up a little bit. So, buy gift cards for your family, for those restaurants, to be able to do takeout, to be able to, eat in at some point, or this summer to be able to experience those businesses. That is such an important piece for those businesses. They need that support. We've seen another sort of positive from the negative. We've seen so many local retailers that have now been able to transition to, curbside pickup. So you can phone them and order, something if you've got a regular thing. A lot of them have moved online, where you can order online and then do curbside pickup, or just pop in and pick things up, those kinds of things. And especially this Christmas, this holiday season, there's so many opportunities through the Craft Revival, the Chamber. We've been working with Dougal Media. We've got a Choose T-Bay First online mall on the TV Newswatch site with a whole bunch of local businesses that you can actually buy online. There's a contest that you can win from local businesses. There's some gift cards and prizes. But anything you can do to support local business right now, stay away from the Amazon, stay away from the Walmart online, and support local as much as you can, because, if we don't buy local, we will be saying goodbye to local, and they need our support, especially right now.
So just in the last 30 seconds or so, Charla, if people want to find out more, what's the best way to get a hold of you and the Chamber?
Yeah, we have a website, tbchamber.ca. On there, we have a full COVID page for all of the resources and supports that are available. So if you're a small business owner and you're wondering about any of those programs, we've got a one-stop shop to be able to link to every program that the government has announced. And then, of course, we're on social media. So, find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and we're constantly providing information, links to local business activities, and we certainly are doing our best to help to support the business community, and those those likes and shares of a local business on social media mean so much to them right now as well. So do that for sure if you're on social media.
Thanks so much for joining me today, and to our audience. Once again, you can go to our Facebook page, Community Conversations. We post links to all of our shows that we produce, and we're always open to your ideas and suggestions for future shows. Stay safe, everybody, and we'll make it through this pandemic together, guaranteed. Take care.
Thanks,
bye-bye.
Steve. Bye-bye.
Working together to make a better community. We can create a brighter day.